Good evening, I'm Kelda Yoon. We'd like to welcome our viewers from Ottawa tonight. GO Transit is adding 8 new bike coaches for one of its busiest train lines. Now, this move comes after riders on the Kitchener line complained of passenger cars being overcrowded with e-bikes. Concerns have also been raised about the safety of e-bike batteries. Tyler Cheese joins us live outside Union Station tonight. Tyler, these new bike coaches also come with a new bike policy from Metrolinx. What are the new rules that riders need to be aware of?
Yeah, Kelda, Metrolinx says they've seen a huge uptick in people using bikes and e-bikes on their trains. So they've updated their bike policy to reflect that. Fare inspectors will now be taking a look at e-bike batteries to make sure they're up to certain standards. And if they're approved, they'll stick a tamper-proof seal on it so other inspectors know that the bike's already been checked. Now, when it comes to those bike coaches you mentioned, each one of those will fit an additional 22 bikes. So overall, people who use the service are pretty happy about the news.
It would be good if they add more bike coaches, because there are so many drivers nowadays, because there are no jobs in the market. So this is the only option left for the international students.
That will be good, because I think, like I see, most of the people, those who take the GO train, they are also getting frustrated with that. I do understand that.
For months, GO Transit has been facing complaints about an excess of bikes and e-bikes on its Kitchener line.
It is completely packed, like beyond capacity.
This woman commutes from Waterloo to Toronto at least a few times a month.
If there's any sort of emergency evacuation, people would not be able to get through because all the aisles and exits are blocked by bikes and people.
Most of the e-bikes belong to delivery drivers who work for services like Uber Eats and Skip the Dishes in the city. But overcrowding isn't the only issue.
Everyone remembers the TTC fire and how quickly the battery blew up and basically filled up the cart with smoke and fire.
In January, an e-bike powered by a lithium-ion battery caught fire and quickly spread to a surrounding subway car, injuring one person.
Imagine that scenario on a GO train is very scary.
In light of that incident, transit agencies are looking at ways to keep commuters safe. When GO Transit's policy goes into effect, only batteries meeting standard UL or CE requirements will be allowed on board. Inspectors will also be looking for signs of corrosion and damage on battery cases and warranty seals. Additionally, charging e-bike batteries on GO Transit property will not be permitted.
We can't have products that can hurt Ontarians on our streets or on our buses or subways or trains like this.
But at the same time, advocates like this biking lawyer are concerned about adding more security protocols.
We know trying to solve our problems with police or security doesn't always end super well, especially for racialized Torontonians or from folks out of town.
He's calling on GO Transit to properly inform the public of these new rules before they go into effect.
These are your rights. This is what we're looking for. Here's your obligations as a train user and things like that. It's all about communicating with the public to ensure that as little harm as possible is done in these.
So the new policy goes into effect as of April 9th. So that's when you can expect to see inspectors out there taking a look at those e-bike batteries before they let anybody on the trains with the bikes. And Kelda, Metrolinx says they do already have staff out educating the public on the changes to come.
All right, thanks so much, Tyler. That's Tyler Cheese live for us tonight. And to talk more about e-bike safety and best practices when it comes to lithium-ion batteries, we reached Dr. Linda Nazar, Canada Research Chair and Professor of Chemistry at the University of Waterloo.
Don't store your battery in a hot place. That will definitely cause problems. Don't subject it to high impact, because that will often cause mechanical issues. When you charge it, be careful. And I guess the last thing is try to keep your battery in your e-bike sort of charged at about 50%. If you keep the battery at full charge, you run into more risk of those aggravated chemical reactions. Make sure you buy a battery and an e-bike from a reputable dealer where they have a battery management system, because if all of that is in place, you have a great e-bike for a long time.
To Queen's Park now, where we're learning a bit more about what's coming in tomorrow's provincial budget. Queen's Park reporter Lorena Redekop has those details.
The Premier and the Finance Minister were in Mississauga with a preview of one item that will be in the provincial budget.
We're going to extend the gas tax cut through to December 31st, 2024.
It's not a surprise. The Finance Minister had hinted that the cut would continue. Doug Ford and his government first added the goodie for drivers in the summer of 2022 and have repeatedly extended it, cutting 5.7 cents a litre off the price of gas. The Finance Minister described his upcoming budget this way.
It's going to help us stay the course while creating stronger communities, not just for today, but for tomorrow as well.
The Premier also says there won't be any tax increases.
We have to continue building the economy. Things are tough out there for people, really, really tough.
Multiple industry sources have also told CBC News the budget will include changes to auto insurance, allowing vehicle owners more freedom to pick and choose their coverage.
You won't be surprised, I'm not going to reveal what's in tomorrow's budget, but what I would say is this, there's many components to auto insurance, one not least of which is auto theft.
The huge spike in car thefts is one reason drivers have been seeing their rates go up. Also a big cost for insurers who have to pay to replace the car.
Auto theft right now is one of the biggest crises for insurance companies. It is so expensive. It's one of the biggest loss events that insurance companies can have.
The Finance Minister also took part in a pre-budget tradition, shoe shopping. No dress shoes this year.
These look great. Good Ontario-made, in-house brand.
He went to a Mark's in Pickering, saying he's frequently visiting building sites.
These construction boots are going to get used a heck of a lot, so I'm very, very happy.
Potentially a hint at something else to come in the budget at a time when so many people are talking about building and housing. Loretta Redicop, CBC News, Toronto.
What if we told you there's a place where it's all happening?
You may have seen this commercial or others like it in recent weeks. The ads are part of a high-profile campaign by the Ford government called It's Happening Here. Government officials previously refused to say how much the ads are costing taxpayers, but through a Freedom of Information request, CBC Toronto found out its estimated price tag is $8 million. The ads have aired online, on radio, and in prime TV time slots, including the Oscars and the Super Bowl. The campaign's message tells Ontario audiences that they live in a place that's investing in EV battery plants and new highways. Construction work on a busy stretch of the Gardiner Expressway begins today, and that means, lane restrictions. The closures will make way for critical repair work that is part of a long-term rehabilitation plan for the 60-year-old Gardiner. Ali Chiasson has more.
Drivers are getting a taste of what the next 3 years is going to be like taking the expressway. Construction between Dufferin and Strawn will require lane closures, and today the eastbound lane is closed for that stretch. And heads up, that also means the eastbound on-ramp onto Jameson will also close. The city says they'll be doing what they can to help ease the flow of traffic.
While these lane restrictions are in effect, we will have a detailed congestion management plan in effect as well that includes traffic diversions, informative signage, the use of traffic agents to improve traffic flow, and traffic congestion monitoring.
Traffic is already pretty bad on the Gardiner Expressway, especially during rush hour, so the news didn't land so great with the drivers at the pumps this morning.
It's already bad, it's exhausted sometime, on the weekends. It's take 1 hour and 2 hours from the airport.
It's going to be very hard for the Uber drivers and all the drivers. It's going to be really hard for us.
The construction is to reinforce the aging infrastructure of the Gardiner Expressway, which is 60 years old. So maybe you can think about the improvements and the difference that will make when you're sitting bumper to bumper.
We do know that the repair work has to happen. I can't promise that I won't get upset and be yelling in my car at times, but it happens. It happens, yeah.
It's kind of part of living in Toronto, I guess, these days.
It is.
This is only the first phase of the construction. Come April, a westbound lane of the Gardiner between that stretch between Dufferin and Strawn will be closed until 2027. Ali.
Welcome back. Charges were dropped against 3 OPP officers in an Oshawa court today. The officers were charged in connection with the fatal shooting of an 18-month-old child in 2020. It happened after an abduction and police pursuit east of the GTA. Chris Glover has more on why the charges were withdrawn.
There were hugs and tears inside a courtroom here in Oshawa as 3 OPP officers learned that the Crown would be withdrawing all charges against them. And defense lawyers told me that while it's a relief for their clients to no longer be charged in connection with the death of an 18-month-old, this case has certainly changed these officers forever.
So it's a huge sense of relief, but there's no celebration here.
For more than 3 years, 3 OPP officers have stood accused in connection with the death of a toddler during a police chase in Lindsay, Ontario back in 2020.
The pursuit in this case was textbook. These officers did everything right. They did everything in accordance with their training. They did everything in accordance with the law.
The Crown prosecutor now agrees, withdrawing all charges stemming from the incident. The chase started after a reported child abduction. Officers shot at the car, killing 33-year-old William Shapiro. His 18-month-old Jameson also struck and killed, seated on his father's lap.
Just be advised, there's a child in that vehicle. There's a child in the vehicle.
Police dispatch audio shows the officers knew the child was in the car. The SIU investigated, and officers Grayson Kappas, Nathan Vanderhayden, and Kenneth Pengali were charged with manslaughter, aggravated assault, and reckless discharge of a firearm. A previous charge of criminal negligence was already dropped, but in court today, the Crown withdrew all remaining charges.
The hell on wheels that was underway when the police were called to respond to save lives was very clear in the evidence.
The lawyers were prepared with an argument of self-defense, but the Crown said following the preliminary hearing this January, the officers released their notes from the incident. The notes showed the officers saw the suspect with a gun, were aiming at him, and could not have assumed the child was on the father's lap. Knowing he was armed and traveling at a high rate of speed, the Crown said the danger to the officers and the public was evident, and a jury was unlikely to convict.
Carrying very serious charges for 3.5 years changes you.
The OPP says after an incident like this, training will be looked at, but the focus remains on all those involved.
Anybody that was even peripherally involved with this, their lives have been affected and changed forever as a result of this.
Now, the Crown suggests that the next step for this case should be a coroner's inquest. That way, the training of the officers and their response can be examined to see if any systemic changes need to be made at the OPP level. And as for the officers and whether they'll return back to work and how quickly that might happen, we didn't get an answer from the defense lawyers today. Chris Glover, CBC News, Oshawa.
A child has been left with life-altering injuries after a dog attack on a playground over the weekend. A woman has been arrested and is now facing multiple charges. Police said she fled the scene with the animal after the attack. Greg Ross has more.
Apparently, a woman was inside this gated playground in downtown Toronto on Saturday morning with her dog, and police tell us that her dog was off leash. I can tell you that there are signs posted all around this playground that say dogs are not allowed inside. Police tell us at one point a father approached with his young child, and that's when the dog charged at them. It was able to get at the child through an open gate, and police tell us that the dog grabbed the child, pulled it to the ground, and then that's when a struggle began between this dog owner and that father trying to free that child from that dog. Police say that once the child was free, the owner of the dog eventually left the scene. Now, the child was taken to hospital with what police have described to us as serious and life-altering injuries. Police later sent out pictures of the woman and that dog believed to be involved in this attack, and they've asked the public to help identify her. There were signs that were posted all around this park with those pictures on them asking if anybody knows the woman, and it didn't take long for the public to come through and help the police identify that woman. 38-year-old Patricia Syrek of Toronto has been charged with criminal negligence causing bodily harm, failed to prevent dog from biting or attacking, a dog bite to a person, allowing a dog to run at large except in a posted designated off-leash area. And this last one is very interesting. Ensure dangerous dog is muzzled at all times when off the owner's property, which is a clear indication that this dog had been involved in some other incident before this, and there was an order that that dog was supposed to be muzzled, and it wasn't. As you can imagine, people in this neighborhood have been shaken by this.
It's just shocking news. It's so disturbing. I think everybody has heard that, just feels their hearts are broken for this child. And as I understand it, it was inside a fenced playground area that this dog was off leash. In other words, inside a children's fenced area. So it's just shocking and absolutely terrible thing to have happened. And I think everybody feels like that today in Toronto.
This has been a growing problem in Toronto ever since the pandemic. The city tells us that there was a large influx of dogs that came to the city during the pandemic, and now more and more we're seeing attacks. According to the city, there are 3,000 dogs right now that have a bite order against them. 450 dogs in Toronto have a dangerous dog order against them, and now there are 16, including the dog involved in this latest incident, that have mauled somebody in the city. Greg Ross, CBC News, Toronto.
The Eglington Crosstown LRT is still not up and running, but the province already has plans to extend the line, announcing a new section in the West End. Clara Pasica has those details.
This is the station.
Representatives from all three levels of government pose for photos holding renderings of stations that will be on the Eglington Crosstown West extension. The next step in the process to build a 9.2 kilometers, 7-stop extension from Mount Dennis Station in the east to Renforth Station in Mississauga.
I'm proud to announce that our government is taking another step forward to build the Eglington Crosstown West extension, and that we are starting the procurement for the station, rail, and systems contract for the Eglington Crosstown West extension. This contract will cover the design and construction of all 7 stations along the line.
5 kilometers of tunneling has already been completed on the project. As for the cost and timeline for the Eglington West extension, the minister wouldn't put a firm timeline or cost.
Procuring now to work with the market and our partners and stakeholders to ensure that it gets built and we can deliver that world-class and reliable transit.
Today's development comes after years of delays to the Eglington Crosstown LRT. Metrolinx still didn't have an opening date for the line. This transit expert says no estimates make it tough for residents to make life decisions.
Though it is very frustrating and it's hard to plan around that. So to anyone who's thinking about moving, I would say you need to be thinking about, what makes sense for yourself, for your family a decade.
The mayor says she's feeling optimistic that
let's do everything at and then they decide. Right? They're not waiting for one after another, which is encouraging.
Torontonians we spoke to up the street aren't quite so optimistic.
It's a no-win situation. Governments change, municipal, provincial, federal. So it's like kicking yourself in the head every time.
It'd be a lot easier to get from the east and the west end, and then Mississauga, I'm hearing, that's pretty cool. So I would be using it, of course. So I'm just gonna have to wait.
It usually and in our by bureaucracy, so I'm assuming it's going to take 10 years or so.
Many residents told eventually. Clara Pasica, CBC News.
And you are looking at a live shot of Toronto, mainly clear tonight with clouds moving in through the overnight. Currently, we are sitting at 6 degrees. Victor Paolo joins us now with a more detailed look at your forecast. And Victor, I'm hoping there are no more spring surprises like the one we got last week.
Well, Kelda, after that snow received on Friday, the good news is there is no snow in the forecast for this week. And that was quite a significant amount of snow. 11 centimeters is actually the most we've received all winter season long. Well, the good news about that word winter, it is in our past. We don't have to talk about that until we get ourselves into the month of December. Now, it is going to be a calm overnight tonight, and we're going to see an increase in cloud cover. The reason we're going to see an increase in cloud cover is because we're expecting it to be a wet and warm couple of days ahead. From Tuesday to Wednesday, we're expecting expecting about 15 millimeters in the forecast to fall, potentially 20. But it's not going to be a big system to fall all at once. It's going to be a steady flow of rainfall throughout the next couple of days. Now, looking at average temperatures for this time of year, 6 degrees is your average high, 6.1 to be correct, and minus 3.3 is your average low for March 25th for the GTA. And looking at what we're going to be expecting when it comes to the weather after the show tonight into your morning tomorrow, it's going to be around 4 to 5 degrees. So it's going to be quite mild start to your day. Of course, we do know the average low for this time of year is minus 3.3. So we're doing quite well in regards to not being too cold or brisk when we start our day. But it will be a wet day because we are expecting that rain to fall. But speaking of tomorrow morning, when your little ones and my little Emmy's getting ready for school, it's going to be a wet one. It's going to be cloudy with a bit of gusts of wind, expecting up to 50 km/h gusts. And it will be 4 degrees, as we talked about, still a mild start to our day. Now, here's what's happening in the Golden Horseshoe over the next couple of hours. Right around 11 when our show started, it was pretty clear outside, but the increase of cloud cover by the time we start our morning, around 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, we're expecting to see those clouds turn into rain, and it's going to last throughout the days we talked about. A steady flow of rain lasting from about midday, early morning Tuesday, all the way through to Wednesday morning afternoon. Things are going to calm down in the evening for Wednesday as things start to clear up, but also in the wake of all of that rain, we're going to be anticipating more seasonal temperatures. Now, as we talked about seasonal temperatures, your average high being closer to +6 and your average low being closer to -3. So when you have days like Wednesday where it's a high of 12, well, we know for sure that that's quite the above seasonal day. Now, when it comes to total amounts, we know we're anticipating in the forecast close to about 15 to 20 millimeters. We're not going to be receiving big, heavy amounts. Now, looking at our 3 and 5 day forecast, well, we see that rain coming on Tuesday. We see that 12 degrees on Wednesday, and then eventually we see that drop down to seasonal temperatures for your Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Hope you all stay dry, Toronto, and over to you.
All right, thanks so much, Victor. Finally tonight, Easter is still days away, but children in northern Poland are already celebrating, decorating giant Easter eggs with designs that pay tribute to their heritage. Some kids use glue to stick fabric and tissue paper on the eggs to depict sailors and fish, a tribute to their port city. Other students painted bright floral patterns associated with their local culture. 20 decorated eggs will be on display at a shopping center until April 5th. And that is our show for you tonight. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you back here tomorrow night at 11. Have a great night.